Hi, I'm Ron Canner. I'm standing right near the southern steps of the ancient temple, and behind me is what is called the pinnacle of the temple. And I want to tell you the story of James, the brother of Jesus. Now, the first thing I have to tell you is that there was nobody in the first century in this area called James. James is not a Jewish name, but if you are a Jew living in the first century in Judea, there are no James. However, his name was Jacob or Yaakov. So Jacob, the brother of Yeshua, Jesus, during the time of Jesus, did not believe in him. We believe he came to faith shortly after the resurrection, and he eventually became the leader, the apostolic leader of the first believers here in Jerusalem. We know that when Paul comes back to Jerusalem in Acts chapter 21, it says he meets with Jacob and the apostles, and we know in Acts 15, when they have the Jerusalem Council, Jacob is the lead apostle. Now, Jacob so respected in this area that every sect of Judaism, the Pharisees, the Sadducees, the Essenes, everyone respected James. In fact, James was the only Jew that was allowed to enter the temple anytime he wanted to. Why? Because he prayed all the time for the Jewish people, so much so that they called him the camel-kneed, and they called him James the Just, or Yaakov HaTzadik. Well, for 30 years, he lives as the leader of the Jerusalem congregation, loved and respected, but over time, jealousies arise, and the Pharisees come up with a plan during a time when there was no governor. They decided to invite James to the pinnacle of the temple, right up there, to address the Jewish people, to give a Passover greeting. Their plan was to set a trap for him. Once he was up there and he began to speak, they asked him what he thought about Yeshua, about Jesus. He answered, "Why do you ask me about Yeshua, the Son of Man? He sits in heaven at the right hand of the great power and will soon come on the clouds of heaven." That's interesting because that sounds almost exactly like what his brother said about 30 years ago. When asked, he said, "I am the Messiah. And you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of the great power, coming with the clouds of heaven." Almost identical. Now, the pinnacle of the temple was a very important place. In fact, we've uncovered a stone with an inscription on it that said that that was the place of the blowing of the shofar. So this is where Yeshua is being quoted by his brother Yaakov on the pinnacle, the place where the shofar is blown, and we know that a shofar will be blown just before Yeshua returns. Well, that's not the end of the story. The Pharisees were incensed that he didn't reject Yeshua, so they threw him down. Now that's about 100 feet drop, and believe it or not, he survived. But then the people began to pick up stones and began to stone him. And just like his brother Yeshua, he said, "Father, forgive them. They know not what they do." Somebody came over and tried to stop the people, but sadly, a man took a large stick and hit him hard in the head, instantly killing him. And friends, that is the story of the life and death of the brother of Yeshua, not James, but Jacob, the Jewish disciple of the Messiah. Shalom from the southern steps of the Old City.